Okay, so we'll get started with the session. Hello, everyone. I am Vikas from the VTAP platform team, and we are working here in the platform team on low code and no code tools to help all the partners, developers, and administrators to extend the capabilities of the CRM. And this is generally needed to help you build these complex solutions. And we know every businesses have unique problems, different problems, and the out of the box functionalities are not helping them solve their problems. So VTAP platform is where VTAP platform comes in, and we are trying to give you as much control as possible to the low level, so that you can build your own custom solutions and send it out, build it for your customers. So this session, we are particularly talking about Connect. So we are calling this as a VTAP Connect, and this is to connect with other applications. We know as a company, you would be using hundreds and thousands of applications, different teams you have, from accounts teams to sales teams to support team. Each one have their own needs, and one application cannot suffice the need of all the teams. So you need to connect with different applications. You need to bring in those applications in data into Vtiger, or you need to send the data of the CRM to the other application. And this is where the platform has given this ability to connect, bring in that data, show it in Vtiger, or do the other way around, where you can send the information out from the Vtiger platform. And this is just an example of how we can connect with any applications, be it Google, Stripe, HubSpot, Zapier, anything that can be come to VTAP, and VTAP can send that information to the CRM and vice versa. So apart from connecting to other applications, now what the low-code platform also has done is it has given you these UI hooks within the product. So this is a typical page of a list page in Vtiger, and this is where we have given hooks so that you can put in your own custom buttons, icons, widget, and bring in those additional functionalities that your customers may need. And similarly, this is again a detailed page, and wherever possible, we have given those hooks so that you can inject that special data from other application. And so we've been working on this the low-code tools, and before bringing it out to your partners and to the customers, we have first experimented this within ourselves. And what we did is we tried to build as many extensions as possible and release them to our marketplace. Now some of these extension lists names that you're seeing are actually built completely on VTAP low-code tools, using VTAP low-code tools. And these are already there live on our marketplace. Customers are downloading them and they are using them. So some of these things that only work within Vtiger, and there are some extensions that work with external applications also. So sending WhatsApp messages, sending SMS messages, integrating with Clearbit, it's an external application, bringing in the data from Clearbit and showing it within Vtiger. Keyboard shortcuts is completely an extensions that works within CRM. VoiceBot again works within CRM. It doesn't have any interaction with outside. So we have a mix of both types of extensions which work within Vtiger and which connects with external applications, and also bring those application information into the CRM. And we are continuously working, we are continuously exploring, and we are continuously improving our platform to bring in more such integrations. So some of the new upcoming integrations that you will be seeing on our marketplace and on our platform would be connecting to auth to applications like Google, all the Google Mail, Sheets, Drive, all of them are auth to applications. Likewise, you want to sync the data with another application like, let's say, Constant Contact or Pipedrive or Salesforce. One of your team, let's say your marketing team, is working on HubSpot and your support team is working with Vtiger. You'd still want to sync the data because you have a common clientele. And using our data sync integration feature, you will be able to sync the data seamlessly in both the direction or one direction. The complete control will be in the hands of the customer or you as a developer also. And apart from this, we are also given ability to bring in other SMS providers, WhatsApp providers, different phone call providers, and all these now can be built just using these tools. So in our upcoming in the coming weeks, we will be showcasing these and show them as webinars and try and explain you how this can be achieved. Yeah, this is just a screenshot that I'm sharing with. This is the current screenshot of an extension show, and the top 9 extensions that are released, most of them are actually built on the VTAP platform, and right now customers are using them. So this is the power of the platform right now, and this is just the start of it. And as time goes, we are getting into no code tools also, and those will improve and enhance the experience of a CRM. So in terms of today, what I'll be talking about would be is more to connect with an external application. So what is VTAP Connect? As I said, we want to connect with other applications. So Vtiger in itself is not complete. So we will always be in need of getting some information from another application. And that is where VTAP Connect will come in. You can connect any application that has these APIs. Now, this session would be a little bit technical because I want to showcase how the exact integration is done. And I want to show this is possible to achieve within about 30 minutes. So this will be a little bit of technical. This will be a little technical, and you would see I'll be adding a little bit of code to achieve these abilities. So as I said, VTAP Connect is to connect with applications, other applications, those that have exposed these APIs. So if nowadays you have seen most of these applications are on cloud, everyone is coming to the cloud. So, if you are on cloud, then there's a good possibility that you will be exposing those information through some programming interfaces. So some of these programming interfaces are REST, O2, SOAP, and webhooks. So any application that has these abilities, Vtiger can connect to them and interact with them. So in terms of today's agenda for this webinar, what I'll be talking about is only about REST APIs. We have a lot of other topics, but we'll just focus on this. What is REST API? Some of the use cases where these APIs are used, how VTAP as a platform can connect to these APIs, and show you integration, how we can build such integration in 30 minutes. And at the end, we will have a session of question and answers where we will try and answer any of your questions. And at any point of time, if you do have any questions, at the bottom, I think there is a question and answer section. You can post your questions there, and we have Harish and Siv Kumar from the partnership team and the platform team to help you, answer those questions. You can also use our chat to, ask any questions. So let's get into the agenda for today. And so first thing is, what is REST API? So this is, again, someone who, if you are technical, you would easily understand this. But as I also explained, any application that is there on the cloud will have this ability to access information through these, programming APIs. And these are these standard APIs that can be accessed using HTTP standard protocol. Why this is why we have chosen this topic is because of its popularity and because of its adoption. We have seen the advantages of these APIs are that it can be easily built. You can easily build these APIs and consume it. That's why you see most of these applications having this ability. And also, in terms of, the consuming resources, it is taking a it takes less bandwidth. So usage, and in terms of performance, it is pretty fast and very easy. These are the advantages. There are some disadvantages. I would not really say disadvantage, but some shortcomings, like, there is no standards for these APIs. So any application, uh, every application will have their own ways of doing things, and releasing these APIs. So there's no standard format for it. So you just have to get used to each of these application APIs. But once you get a hang of these APIs, they are pretty straightforward. Going with the use cases now, when generally you will feel the need of using these APIs. Now, as I said, CRM as a whole is not enough. Sometimes you want some additional functionalities that is not there in your CRM. Or your application. You always want, there will be other applications who are giving these abilities. So some of these use cases I have just noted down here. So let's say if you want to validate an email address and phone number that is given by your customer, so that your sales team don't waste time following up with incorrect email address, or trying to call a phone number which is not really available. So you would want to reduce their time, and you would want to validate this information before forwarding it to your sales team or your support team. Now, this ability again is not possible from the standard vanilla CRM. But there are other companies who give these services. Likewise, let's say getting the geolocation details based on the IP addresses. So let's say you have a website you have a website, and there's a person coming in from Spain, Italy, or France. When he comes and signs up on your website, you would want to give them a localized effect. You would want to show the language in the language from which country they have come from. So you would want to understand from which location they have come. So things like this is not again possible. So there are applications that give these abilities. The next would be, let's say you want to always use the latest currency exchange rates. If you're building your invoicing, your quoting to your customer, and you would want to use latest currency rates. Again, there are services that provide these abilities. You want to connect with a service, you want to connect with an application, you want to connect with a company that has installed these weather devices and tracking all these weather details in different parts of the world. And by just giving the name of the city, they will pull those weather details that they have captured, and they will give it to you. Another example is getting the company's profile details by just giving the domain of the company, or by just giving an email address. So let's say if you give vikas@vtiger.com, they will understand that I belong to Vtiger as a company. It will try and find all the public information of Vtiger and then send it to you. So that again, it will help your sales team to follow up with the right customers with right set of information. So these are some typical use cases that I've shared, which is not possible from the standard vanilla CRM, but there are other applications who are doing this. But you would still feel that getting these things into the CRM will boost the performance of your CRM users. So what I'll try and do is in this webinar, we will try and showcase an example of how we can fetch a company's profile details by just using a domain or email address, and show this information in a small widget. So what I mean is, let's say if you give a domain name like airbnb.com, you would get company name, how many employees are there in the company, what is its LinkedIn profile, where is its headquarters, which city it is located in, and when it was founded, things like this. So by just giving the the email address, you will get these details. Now, these details again will be useful, let's say, for the sales team to follow up with the customer. If it's a high profile customer, you definitely want your senior members to interact with them and get in touch with them and try and make a sale or do some business with them. So getting into the exact set of steps, what we will be doing. is, let's say there is a company called as abstractapi.com, and this company gives these REST APIs or these services, and you, by just sending them the domain address or the email address, they'll give all these company enrichment data to us. So in terms of step, what we'll be following is we'll first sign up an account in abstract.api.com, and accessing these data is done through an API key. So the Abstract API will generate a key and give it to you. We'll use that key. After we get the key, now our work on outside the Vtiger is done. Now everything will now happen within Vtiger. So what we will do in Vtiger is we will build an API in our API designer. API designer is the one that helps you connect with external applications. So you could say the step 3 is about a bridge between Vtiger and external application. Then after interacting with the abstractapi.com, we get the data back into Vtiger. Once we get the data into Vtiger, we will want to show that in a widget. So using now VTAP JavaScript APIs, we will get those information, display that information, and show it to the sales agent. So these are the steps. So I've been talking theory. In reality, how it would look. So this is a typical page of an organization detail view, and the one that is marked in the red, this is where we will give option for our users to click, and after clicking, we will get the data from Abstract API and then showcase it here. So, and this is how, let's say, it would show. So this is the final look of the integration, and we will try and build these integration in next about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, so let me just get started with this. Now let's go to the steps. So I have already done a sign up with abstractapi.com and I've got the API key. So after doing a sign up, this is how the Abstract API looks like. They basically give a lot of functionality. They help you do email validation. They help you do phone validation. They can do VAT validation, a lot of things. In this case, I'm interested in getting the company's enrichment data. So I'll click on this enrichment, and here they've given some details here. So one thing is they've given me an API key. So accessing any REST API does not, there are constrained in the sense there will always be some authentication mechanism through which you can access the data. And in this case, this private API key is the one that is helping Abstract API understand that, this is a valid person and he's trying to access a valid data. And they have basically given here, this is the REST API. So when I was talking about REST API, there are 3 parts to the REST API. One is the type of the API, whether it is whether you are getting the details from the API or whether you're sending the details to the API. So that is the type of the API. So in this case, we are getting the data from the Abstract API. So it is a GET type of REST API. And next thing is the URL. So every REST API has a URL that you need to hit. And they have said this is the API URL that you have to hit to get the data. And then there will be a bunch of some parameters that you need to pass. So API key and then domain you have to pass to access that information and get it back. So here we'll just do a test here. So when we do a test here, they say, I'm passing the domain as Airbnb, and this is the information that the Abstract API gives. Now, we would want to show this information in Vtiger, right? So let's get into Vtiger now, how we will get started with it. So as I said, the first thing is we need to connect to this Abstract API, and this connection is done using our API designer. So from our menu, we have platform as an app, and then we have 2 things. One is an API designer and a module designer. So API designer is the one that acts as a bridge between Vtiger and external application. So we create an API here, When I click on add a API, it gives me two options. One is a REST API and webhook. We will come and showcase what is webhook and how you can use these webhooks to connect with other applications. But in this session, we will just talk about REST API. So I'll create a REST API. Right now, all this information I want to show in organization page. So let me select organization module as a here, and let me give a name to it. I will just call it as abstract API. So this name is very important because you will be using this name to access data within Vtiger. So once I save this API, I see a screen. This is the editor where you need to define the API to Vtiger. Now this screen here, the definition of this API is done using VADL. VADL is a language that the VTAP platform team has defined to connect with external application. This language is not a rocket science. This is based on XML itself. It's loosely based on XML. So if you understand XML, this language is also just based on XML. And just by learning few of these XML nodes, you should be able to connect with this. So to add any API, every API is always wrapped under API node. So to connect with any applications, you need to have API as a first node. And after that, since we are working with REST APIs, we will have a node called as REST. So as I said, REST has three parts. One is the type of the request, one is the URL, and third one is the parameter. Apart from this, there are something called as headers also. But in this session, we will just stick to these three things. So we are trying to access the data from abstract API. So we will set something called as method equal to get here, and then pass a URL. Now this URL is the URL that is defined until the question mark. So I'll just copy this, put it in here and paste it here. So our URL is done. Next thing is parameters. So you can see there are a couple of things after question marks, and each of these are basically parameters, and these parameters are identified with a name and a value. These are very important piece of information so that the other side understands that there's an authenticated person that is coming and he's coming with a valid request. So these I would put it under parameters here. And since there are multiple parameters, each one of them are put under parameters, and we are giving it as an attribute name. And this name should match with whatever name they have defined in their API. Be very careful on that. And the value, this value will be put here. And apart from this, then we have parameter name is, again, it is expecting a domain. And this is saying airbnb.com. So this is all about the API. And once this is done, we will save and publish it. So our API is published. Now, there could be a reason why we need to add this API. So if you are aware, the JavaScript, or because our platform is now built completely on JavaScript and we are using Vue as a framework, you cannot trigger a cross-domain request. So you cannot send a request from vtiger.com to abstractapi.com unless abstractapi.com has allowed it. So to do that, to bypass this restriction, this is again a security that is implemented by the browser. And to bypass this security, you have to connect to a server side, which is what the API designer is doing here as a bridge. And that will give us this bridge to connect to abstract. So we will save this API here. And now let's see whether this API really is working or not. So on the right-hand side, we have something called as a playground. And you can just test here by sending it here and see whether this, oh, so there is a response that I've got saying it's an unauthorized domain. So whenever we are accessing anything from Vtiger to other applications, we need to inform Vtiger that, you're trying to access this domain, whether it is valid or not. So generally administrator has to whitelist them. So we have given an option here in the API designer settings page here, where you can put in those domains that are allowed. So I am just adding this domain for this module. Now the administrator will have to add this setting. This is again to ensure, you're just not hitting some random domain and bringing in some junk data, or, sending this information back to, sending the CRM information to that website. So I have done this. Now let me again send and see. Yeah, so this works. I've got a response and I've got details about the company here. But in reality, you'd always not want Airbnb. You would want, different data. So you need to make this dynamic here. So this information, based on which org you are accessing, this information has to become dynamic. So let's say if you're accessing this record, then the domain should be vtiger.com. If you're accessing this record, then domain should be this. So to make this dynamic, you need to change to something called as @domain. @ is the one that tells this API that this will be a dynamic data. You need to listen on this name in the API when JavaScript is making a call here. So I'm changing this to a dynamic, and I'll just save and publish it. So now API is done here. Now the next step is to build a widget in the detail page. So what I will do is I will build a widget here in the detail page using module designer. Now module designer tool is the one that helps you do any interaction with Vtiger user interface. So if you want to build a widget, you want to build an icon, you want to change the color of the CRM, everything can be done using module designer. So right now I want to add a widget to the detail page. For this, again, this is there in the platform module designer. Once you click here, you will see this as a screen. On the left-hand side, you will see the list of modules. And on the right-hand side, you will see a bunch of resources here. So we are building something for organization module. So I'll select organization as a module here. And to add a widget, we need to use tab scripts. So we need to add these tab scripts. These tab scripts help you register these components with Vtiger interfaces and help you give control whenever a user is making action on those components. So let me just add a script here. Let me call it as enrich. And I want to show this only in organization. So I'm selecting it as a organization one. Now, once you add a script, here is where everything with respect to JavaScript and the VTAP JavaScript API comes into picture. Now, this is everything in Vtiger is a component. So when I say a component is basically a building block, you could say, in Vtiger, where every interaction, every button, every list view, every detail view is bundled it into a component. And then there are some properties in this component that will help you define the HTML, define the interaction, the user interaction with it. So I'll explain you as I go forward. Now, the first thing would be I want to add a widget. So to add a widget, the starting point of any component is done in a function called as created. So you need to add a function called as created in this component. And to add a widget, we will use the JavaScript now, or we will start using JavaScript VTAP API. So vtap.component.register is the one that helps you register. And since we are registering this in the detail view, we are giving a name to it. We are calling it as detail underscore summary underscore widget. And now we need to, now the widget is in itself is not enough. It needs to, define how it looks, how the look and feel of it is, right? So for that, we need to create another component. I'll explain a little bit more about component going forward, but this is how we will add a component, a detailed component. We'll say load. We'll call it as, let's say, abstract widget counts. And I want to restrict this widget to show only in organization. Accounts, again, is an internal name. Organization is the one that you see it in the user interface, but internally it is called as accounts. So I want it to show only in accounts. So this is the fourth parameter here, tells that. Now, how should I define the look and feel of this component? Now, every component has a naming convention here. So I will define this component in my accounts module. So accounts.component is common here. And then I'm giving the name of this. So this is the name. Every component has to extend from our core component. And it should extend. Now, to define the HTML, we have a property called as template. I'll just define a simple HTML here. I will, let's say, I want to show a button. This is how we quickly add a button. Says, let's see, call it as test. I'm done with this. Now, what I'll do is I'll save and publish. So when I save and publish, this tells Vtiger that, we are trying to register a component to the accounts module, and that detail view component should show this HTML. So I'm just waiting for this to publish. Yeah, this is published. I will go to org page. I'll just do a refresh. I'll open one of the pages here. Just a second. I'll think I was doing, I'll just disable one of the previous scripts. So you will see what I'm trying to build here. So we, as I said, we are only showing a button here in our, widget. We're just showing this button here. So let me come back here. You can see there is a button that shows up here. Now, just to add now we need to make a little bit better look and feel of this. So we have to add, let's say, a little bit more stylings. So this is standard HTML. So anyone who has basic understanding of this will be able to, quickly build something here. So I'll just give, let's say, by me some height to this. I'll give a background color to this, and I will give some more color to my button. The button looks very plain and old. So we are using Bootstrap as a framework here. So anyone familiar with Bootstrap and Bootstrap classes can make use of this. So just made a little bit, just changed a little bit of color, a little bit of, makeup I've added to this. I'm publishing it again. Let's wait for it to get published. Let me refresh here. And you can see now this is taking a good white background, and the button is a little bit better. Now it is taking the theme color, the Vtiger theme color. Now this is how we can, this is how we can make small widgets to show, but this is not enough. Now we need to make it a little bit more interactive. To make it interactive, you need to listen on the user when he clicks on this button. So to listen on the click, we have something called as @click, and you need to call a function here. So when the user clicks, this is called. This is again a custom function that you are writing. So I am writing now. To access this function, we have another property in our component called as methods. And we need to define the function here. So let's just say, hooray. Let's see, whether the control is coming, and I can show an alert. So let me publish. Just wait for a second, a little bit more maybe. And let me refresh here. Click on this. You can see this alert comes up. So now you've made this button interactive. So now quickly, what we need to do when a button is clicked, you want to get the information from abstract API and then show it in Vtiger. So that is what we will do in this function here. But before that, we want to know what is the email domain. If you remember, I had said that the domain is a dynamic data that would come based on the current the org that you are accessing it. So to get access to this piece of information, or to get access to any piece of information on the page here, we have provided something called as a property. So that's there as a props, and we're calling it as a record. So this record basically has all the details that you're seeing here, and you can access it in your JavaScript. So let me just quickly show you what this data basically has. And again, you can use standard JavaScript APIs to do a lot of debugging. So this console.log is a standard JavaScript API. So when I click now on which I will log the data. So let me publish this. Let me go to organization, refresh this. To see this data now, to see the data that comes in console.log, all these the Chrome has provided us these developer tools. So you can do a right click and inspect, and there's something called as console. So this console is the one that will show this information for us. So you can use this to debug it. So when I click on this, you can see there is something that is getting printed here. And if you expand this, you can see there's some information that is familiar here. You can see Vtiger, that's the account name. And these are the internal names of the fields. And these are the actual data. And if you actually see email_domain, you would see vtiger.com. So this is the one piece of information that we are right now interested in. So we want to use this information and pass this information to our API. So let's close this. And to access this information, I will use this .record, and I will say if email_domain is empty, show alert. So there are again utility functions. Please add a valid domain. And I do not want to go further. Let me just remove this. Now, if there is no email domain, then it'll throw an error message. But if it is there, then how do you access now the abstract API data? So we have a JavaScript API called as vtap.customapi.get. since we have built this as a get API, we need to use get. Let's say if we are posting some information to abstract, then we would use, let's say, post. But in this case, we are getting this information from them. And we have given the name of this API as this abstract API. So to access this information from the R JavaScript, we need to give the name as the first parameter to this. The second parameter is basically the dynamic parameters that this API is expecting. So this API is expecting a dynamic parameter called as domain. So I will pass this dynamic parameter here, and this will come from record email underscore domain. So this is the API, this is the dynamic parameter. Now, how do I access the response of it? So we have a callback function here as a third parameter to this API that can access the data here. So now you get the response, of this API in here, in this callback function. This is again, if people familiar with JavaScript will be able to relate to this. And if the response is there, I want to make use of this response and then show it in my page here and show that data here. So whatever data you were seeing here, now I want to show it in this widget here. So how can I do that? If I get the response, not the error, then I want to access that information and use it in my HTML. Now, to use this data in HTML, we need to use something called as data variables. So these data variables are the ones that will hold the data and pass on the data to these HTML. So I will say response.content. And if you actually just see here, the actual data is there inside content key. So I'm accessing content. And again, this is a JSON data, so I need to parse this information before giving it to the data. Now, we need to do one more thing before using this data. There is another function called as data that needs to know that I will be using a data property to store the data and use it in my HTML. So this is expecting an object here. So I need to define this data to use this in my HTML. Now I'll come to my HTML part. So now here, once I get the data, I want to show this in a table. Let's just say I want to use it in the table. So I'll quickly add a table. Table here. And there are multiple pieces of information. So I need to loop through all these information and show them one by one. So that is done using something called as v_for. So this will be a value, then the label in this. So my data is there in this here. And I will create some columns here. And to display this piece of information, I will use this flower brackets. I'll just change this to make it a little bold, and I'll publish this. So this is all that was needed to read the data from the API and display this in HTML. So I've published this. Let me come here. Let me refresh the page here. And let me go here. Let me just rename this. This test looks a little odd here. Let's call it as enrich my data. And yeah, I'll just add a little checks here. So not please show this button when I don't have data. If I have data, don't show this. So I'm just waiting for it to publish. Yes, it's done. I'll refresh. Now enrich my data. I click on it. This in the background is actually hitting, and you can see this starts showing up here. Again, I've not done any formatting. I've not done any stylings, but actually how this would look would be something like this. I've just built a ready component, which a little bit better, styles. So there's an option to, disable your scripts. So once, let's say you have published it, you can disable them. So I'm just republishing my older script that I had made it ready for this demo. And now when I go here, you can see this looks a little better. I've just done a little bit more stylings and better formatting. It shows in the center of the page and all. And when I click on this enriched data, you see this is the data that shows up. So probably, this is how you can connect to the external applications and bring this data for your other teams to, be in one place. You don't have to then switch between different applications. So now there's one more part to this. Now, when you're, let's say if you want to build this as an extension and then you want to release this in our extension store, so that is possible. And for this, you need your customers to dynamically put this API key. Now, this is right now I have put in my API key, but in reality, you would not really have, you will not be putting this API key directly here. You would want them to show a settings page, and then there they will put these API key, and then you will access that API key here. So I'll just quickly show you how that can be achieved. You can use our VTAP JavaScript data APIs to store the information in Vtiger. And then at any point of time, if you want to use this information, you can use it either on the JavaScript or using in our API designer. So now to do this, what I'll do is I'll quickly disable this, go to my previous script. I will register another component in the list view advanced underscore setting, and it needs a name as a property. I'll just say abstract API settings, and then it needs a handler. This is basically a function. We'll call it as click settings. Now, what this will do is, if I save and publish this, what this will do is this will add a settings icon in your list page. You can see there's an icon here. This basically shows up here. So you want your customer to come, click on this, then type in their API key here and save it. So that is what this this registration is doing it. Okay, so this is registering, and then on click. Now, what I did here was show a pop-up here. Now, since the time is running out, I'll quickly show this using our already built-in script. So what I've done is when you click on this icon, we are showing this as a pop-up and storing this information using our data APIs. So if I go back to my script here, so this is the one that has done the registration, and you're clicking on a function here. When you're clicking on this, this opens up a pop-up. Now, to create a pop-up in Vtiger, again, we have given JavaScript API. That API is called as VTAP utility show pop-up. So this pop-up, this API will then show a pop-up. But again, you need to define how this pop-up looks and look and feel. You need to define the HTML. You need to define how it should display to your customers. So for that, you need to load another component. And this is what we have given here. This is another component that is getting loaded that basically shows this input. And on click of OK, it will store this key to our database. Okay, so I have created this as another component here, just here. The name, again, if you see here, this is the name, this is the module name. The name convention is module component underscore that component name. And at the bottom, if you see, there is something called as template where I have defined the HTML for it. And this HTML has simple things. It has a simple input. And there's something called as vModel where the data is binded with whatever the user is giving in the interface here. So when user clicks on OK, we are calling a function called as OK. And you can define the function here, save. This save function basically then helps you save this piece of information. And the JavaScript API that we are using here is VTAP appdata.save. So to save any application data, we are using this API. So I'm giving a name of the module. That's very important because every data has to be bounded to a module. And I'm giving an identifier for this data. So the identifier for this is abstract underscore API key. And then passing this value that the user has put in data underscore value. This dot data API again is a data variable which the component understands that the user has typed in, and it will take whatever data that that user has typed in and it will send it to Vtiger. And once it is saved, Vtiger will store it in our database. Now, this is, you have done the part of storing. Now, how do you use this data? To use this data, now you in, let's say in API Designer, how can you use this data? Now, we don't want this direct data. You want to use the data that they have stored. That is accessed using apps.$app. This is the standard convention. After this is the module where you're storing this data, which is in accounts. If you remember, I'm storing this in accounts, and then the name of the key. So I'll take this and I'll then put dot key. Once I do this, I need to publish this. Once I publish this, now I have made this API key configurable and it can be given by the customer now. So now if I go to my organization, it is, instead of using this from here, it is now actually using from the configuration that the administrator has actually done. So administrator would be coming and punching in this API key. And basically it works just like how it was. So let's say I'll go to Airbnb and I'll say enrich my data. You would see this data. So this is how we have made even storing these API keys globally. So any user that comes in can access this, and you can actually build these extensions and then store these API keys and use it in our API Designer. You can actually, again, also use these data from our JavaScript APIs also. So JavaScript APIs, when I say we are using here for saving, when you do appdata.get, it will get the information that you have saved. So that is how we are using the data store to make these extensions much more configurable. I think this is what I had planned for this session, and I'm done with this demo here. I'll just quickly, talk about a few more things before we get into question answer session. There are a few more helper tools that we have built with the API Designer. One is the playground that I already showcased you. You can quickly test the API that you are building here without going outside the CRM. Or generally, you have to use Postman to just see whether the API that you have built is working or not. And then there is another thing called as documentation that will basically give you understanding of what type of this API is, what is its URL, what is its type, what parameters we are using, etc. And apart from this, we have a log. So any API log that is done, now you want to dig deeper. Let's say if your API is not working, how do you access that? How do you know what's happening in the backend? So we have something called as logs. And here it has all the logs, all the API logs that are done. And when you click on each of the logs, you get a little more detail on what exact request was sent, what was the exact response, what was what what was sent from Vtiger. So these tools basically help you make these APIs, build these APIs faster and debug these APIs in case you come up with any problem. So that is all I had for this webinar. In terms of any questions, I think we will get started in a couple of minutes. But we will have next session on the we will have another webinar in the next week at the same time, where we will be trying to talk about how you can use our VTAP platform to connect to auth to applications. Applications like Gmail, applications like Slack, you can all connect to them through auth 2, and they have opened up APIs on auth 2. And there's another feature that we are pretty excited about, that is the incoming webhooks, which again is a way to interact with other applications. And we will try and showcase how you can build these webhooks and how you can get the information, get some data from external applications. So do join us if you're interested in understanding and building extension on these topics. Yeah, I think we are done with this, and now we are opening up for any questions that you have. Siva, Ganesh, Harish, are there any questions?
No, Vikas. I think,
okay.
Hi all. I think it was a wonderful session by Vikas, and I think we would like to just take your feedback. And I think there are 2 chats come up now. I think it's just thanking message. Okay. So I think it was a wonderful session by Vikas, and what we would like to do is please write to us if you have any questions later, and I think Vikas will revert to you on your answers. And as he suggested that next Wednesday at the same time, we would like to have one more session. We will send you all the invite, and to ensure that all your organization people also get to know about this webinar if they're not attended, we will be sending you a recorded session maybe by tomorrow or day after tomorrow, so that you all can use this as a reference point. So thank you all for joining. And,
Harish, 1 minute. We have one question from Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse, go ahead.
So the question is, because you mentioned the inventory API will be ready this week, is that still on track?
Yes, that is almost done. You will be getting the details in some time. So I already have the details ready. This is again out of the topic, not related to the webinar. But yes, Jesse, I'll be connecting with you in some time.
Yeah, that's all from our partners here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining the session, and hope to see you in the coming sessions as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, everyone, for joining the call.
Have a great day.
Thank you.